I got broads in Atlanta. Just took the lean in the family. Credit cards and the scammers.
His goal here is to push the notion that guns are responsible and not the police department. Suddenly, he's defending the cops for not doing their job. Here's David Hogg defending the police officers. By the way, no one should be doing this, okay? If a police officer does something that is wrong, then everybody should be condemning that police officer. If a sheriff's deputy does not run into the line of fire when he has a gun and try and save students, he did something wrong. And David Hogg, nobody else, nobody is allowed to go out there and exonerate this person for the sin of letting children die when you had the capacity to stop it, and it was your legal duty to do so, which is what happens here. Now, I'm not talking about whether it's suable. I'm talking about you were hired to do a job, and you purposefully did not do that job, even according to your own sheriff, who himself is a garbage provocateur. Now, here is David Hogg on CNN defending the police officers and saying, well, I don't really want to say anything about Scott Israel. No shock, he doesn't want to say anything about Scott Israel. Scott Israel's on the same side as he is when it comes to guns. And if he goes after Scott Israel, then it may allow the press to swivel their attention away from their maniacal approach to gun control and toward what actually happened here. So here's David Hogg.
He just like every other police officer out there, at heart is a good person. He didn't take action in this event, and I can't explain why, or I just can't explain. There are no words to explain why he wouldn't take action to take out this individual. But I think it's a good example of how if he didn't take action and supposedly 4 others didn't, I mean, who does? Who wants to go down the barrel of an AR-15 even with a Glock? And I know that's what these police officers are supposed to do. But they're people too. They need to worry about themselves as well as all the other students. And I don't think teachers need to have that responsibility either.
So no one should have the responsibility of facing down a bad shooter. So who's going to stop that bad shooter? I love this assumption that the guns are magically going to disappear from society, but they're not. So who's going to stop the bad shooter? Was it that long ago that we forget that there was a security officer with a Glock who stopped a congressional baseball shooting? Is it that long ago that we forget that it was an NRA member who stopped who shot a mass shooter in Texas? Is it that long ago that we forget that the vast majority of these mass shooters are stopped eventually by a cop? Most of them don't end up shooting themselves. Usually it's the police officers who have to do something to stop these guys. But I guess that we're going to pretend that David Hogg gets to be the Pope now. He's going to provide indulgences. He's going to provide old school, corrupt indulgences. All he has to do is sit around and pass out indulgences. All you have to do to get an indulgence is say that you are for gun control. That's all you have to do. David Hogg really keeping the blame where it belongs. He keeps attacking Dana Lash. So he's on CNN's Reliable Sources with Brian Stelter. And there, he defended the sheriff again, said that the sheriff, Scott Israel, hadn't done anything wrong, but attacked Dana Lash again, because of course Dana is more responsible than the sheriff, whose job it is to actually protect these kids and who failed dramatically over and over and over and over 45 times, and then had a sheriff's deputy there who didn't do anything, and maybe 3 more who didn't do anything, and then went on national television and yelled about it. Here's David Hogg, though, attacking Dana Lash, because it's really Dana's fault.
Here's what Dana's been saying as a spokesperson for the NRA. She says that she wants to continue to pass laws. She wants people in Congress to pass laws that help out with mental health and things like that, and she says that she can't do that. Are you kidding me? You own these politicians. You've passed legislation that enables these bump stocks, which, by the way, aren't allowed at NRA shooting ranges because they're too dangerous. That's how bad they are. But continuing on with my point, she wants Congress to take action and says that they won't. Are you kidding me? She owns these congressmen. She can get them to do things. It's just she doesn't care about these children's lives.
Well, I asked Dana, if she owns congressmen, can she get them to do entitlement reform? I mean, so long as she's got them completely in her pocket, can she push them for maybe some better regulations? Yeah, there are about 1,000 things that I could ask Dana to do as long as she has Congress directly in her pocket. But that last statement is really egregious, and we're going to discuss that at length in just a second. That last statement where he says that Dana doesn't care if children get killed, this is sick stuff. And I understand you went through a tragedy. I understand something bad happened to you. That does not make that statement any less immoral. It is immoral to sit around suggesting that Dana Lash does not care about dead kids because she disagrees with David Hogg, of all people, on gun control. Again, I've been saying this for a week and a half. I don't understand what about tragedy somehow confers expertise on policy on people. I don't think it does. I think it confers expertise on suffering because that's what you've done. You have experience in suffering. But you don't magically have knowledge about gun control or how it works. You don't magically have knowledge about gun policy after studying the issue for half a hot second, and then going on TV and spouting slogans that you got from Chuck Schumer's webpage. And you certainly don't have the moral credibility under any circumstances to impugn the intent of people who clearly do care about the death of children. You know who doesn't care about the death of those kids? The shooter. You know who doesn't care about the death of those kids? Presumably ISIS. But I promise you, Dana Lash does care about the death of those kids. I even believe that Scott Israel, who I think is a schmuck, cares about the death of those kids. I think he's a bad guy. I think he cares more deeply about his own political career than he does about the truth. But I'm sure that he was pained by the death of those children. But attributing those motives to Dana, it really is immoral. And this brings up a serious problem with the entire debate that we are currently having. It is self-contradictory. We have all these statements that are being put out there one after another, and they all contradict each other, and we are supposed to pretend like they don't. So, for example, we keep hearing that the Parkland shooting witnesses are taking moral leadership of the gun control debate, these high school students. They've filled the gap left by the adults. There are new leaders. They're the people we should take super seriously. And then simultaneously, we are told that you must never criticize their perspective because they're victimized children. So which is it? Are these the most brilliant, wise, and wonderful among us? Or is it possible that they could be criticized? Like, which is it? Are they innocent children? And if they are innocent children, then wouldn't that suggest we have to protect their innocence rather than using them as political shields? It's so disingenuous to go around saying these kids are the new experts on gun control, and then the minute you say what they just said is wrong or immoral or not true, then it's you who are the problem. I'm not the one who stepped in front of the camera after a shooting and decided to spout off about gun control. And that was not me, right? I mean, that's my job is to comment on current events. But these kids put themselves in the public eye. That's fine. That's their choice. But being in the public eye comes with criticism. It does. I've been doing it since I was their age. I understand that. I got hit a lot when I was a kid for all of the things that I said politically. And you know what? Some of those were deserved. Sometimes I was wrong. There's this weird notion going around that they can simultaneously claim that they are the great moral arbiters of society and at the same time receive no blowback whatsoever. That's not how the First Amendment works. That's not how public debate works. And that's certainly not how politics should work. We cannot have a society if the way we make policy is someone experienced a tragedy, therefore they are the new king and potentate, and they get to determine what the policy is. So pick one, okay? If all of these witnesses are the moral leaders, then they also have to take the slings and arrows that come with speaking publicly. Hey, how about this? People who are saying the Parkland shooting witnesses demonstrate that 16-year-olds have important things to say about public policy and they should vote. Okay, that's fine. Let's say that's true. Let's pretend that's true for just a second. I'm going to need to hear you make the case why it is then that we should raise the age of being able to obtain a weapon to 21 years old, that children should stay on their parents' health insurance until they're 26 years old, and that teenage criminals should be treated as juveniles. You have to pick one. Are kids adults or are they not adults? How about this one? People on the left suggesting that the police response to the Parkland shooting shows that a good guy with a gun can't stop a bad guy with a gun. All right? Then how do you also argue that I should hand over my guns to the authorities who are going to protect me? So if the good guys with the guns can't stop the bad guys with the guns, why should I give my guns to a bunch of the good guys who can't stop the bad guys? That makes no sense to me. I'm not handing my gun over to the same police department that stood by while 17 people were slaughtered. You got to pick one. Either you can trust the police to protect you, or you can't trust the police to protect you. Here's another one. Members of the NRA don't care about the deaths of children in mass shootings because they disagree with particular policies the left wants. And then we hear from the same people that the media do care deeply about the deaths of children in mass shootings, even if they continue to show the names and the faces of shooters regularly and engage in the same sort of coverage issues that apparently make those shootings more common by studies. So which is it? If we are going to impute motives to people based on their activity, if we're going to say the NRA doesn't care about school shootings because their policies lead to more school shootings, not true, but okay, if that's your argument, then how can you say that the media obviously do care about mass shootings even when they continue to show names and faces of mass shooters on TV for ratings? Which is it? My understanding is the folks in the media do care about shootings, and maybe they disagree with me on how to treat those. And people in the NRA care about shootings too, and maybe they disagree with you on how to treat those. But you got to pick one. You can't have it both ways. Here's another one. David Hogg was completely right to shellac Dana Lash over her culpability in the Parkland shootings, but he was also completely right to ignore the culpability of Sheriff Israel in the Parkland shootings because the facts aren't out yet. Can't have it both ways. If you're going to blame Dana, you certainly have to blame the sheriff who's in charge of all this crap when it went down. How about this? The shooting survivors claiming that Dana and Senator Rubio are morally inferior human beings who don't care about the mass slaughter of innocent kids, but Americans are doing something deeply wrong if we question whether it's appropriate for survivors to impute nasty motives to those with whom they disagree. So in other words, if you're a survivor, you get to impute whatever motive you want to anybody else. But if I say, I'm going to impute a motive to you, which is a political motive, to how you are assessing blame, then I'm the bad guy for having politicized. Doesn't work that way. The same people, I mean, again, there's so many contradictions that are being offered by the gun control proponents here. None of these make sense. Okay, people who are saying semi-automatic rifles must be banned because they're so commonly used in mass shootings, but then say that if I say the Second Amendment is under assault, I'm paranoid and crazy. Why would I possibly think the government wants to take away my rights? Why would I think I need a gun to protect the government from taking away my rights? And then at the same time, they say the government should remove my guns from my house. Explain that one. Explain. By the way, side note here, I saw an argument online today from some dolt that the Second Amendment should be interpreted to give everyone a musket, as opposed to the rifle that they currently have, right? That is equivalent to saying, it is the pure equivalent of saying that we should get rid of the internet, we should get rid of text messaging, we should get rid of the telegraph, we should get rid of the telephone. None of those are protected by the First Amendment. Your ability to speak on none of those is protected by the First Amendment because none of those things existed in 1791. It's a dumb, dumb argument. Another internal contradiction from the gun control side. More armed security at schools, they say, will not make our children safer. But then the folks in the media who say this have armed security at every one of their media outlets. I know, I've been to all of them. CNN has great security. MSNBC, ABC, CBS, they all have terrific security. They're not giving up those armed security guards anytime soon, nor should they.